Bob Woodward, welcome.
Thank you.
When you and Carl Bernstein were deep into Watergate, when the Nixon administration was putting so much pressure on the paper, when most of the media were ignoring those stories, what role did Ben Bradlee play?
He was the general. We've often said that he, in fact, had the courage of a whole army. And the idea was, let's get to the bottom of this. A great believer in the truth, no sense of, he didn't approach journalism as a way of making moral judgments. It was a way of finding out what happened and then let that unfold.
Given the enormous stakes, and you two were a couple of young pups, we can now say at this advanced age, did you worry about keeping his confidence? And what was he like to deal with personally when you were deciding on difficult stories?
He never suggested he was going to take us off the story, and he said subsequently that we were getting new information, and he knew this was coming from the Nixon campaign treasurer or the bookkeeper or people who witnessed the massive house cleaning and destruction of documents after the Watergate burglars were arrested, that we had somebody in the Justice Department, as we now know, Mark Felt, the #2 in the FBI, giving us guidance and assistance about what directions to look in and what the consequences might be. So at the same time, as Ben said, you're publishing these stories, you're not naming the sources, you believe you've got good sources, but we don't have documents, we don't have tapes, we don't have videos, so you go home with a lump in your stomach, and it's a kind of, it's not doubt, it's, as Katharine Graham said, well, when is the whole story going to come out? And we kind of thought, maybe never.
Right. It's easy to look back and say Nixon's resignation was inevitable at the time. You were doing it piece by piece, knocking on people's doors. But how did Ben Bradlee react when you made the one significant error in your Watergate reporting, saying that a witness had named H.R. Haldeman, Nixon's chief of staff, to the grand jury? That must have been a tough moment. Yeah,
that was a very tough moment, and he said, why? How did it happen? What's really important about that moment, I mean, here we had lead story in the Post accusing the president's top aide of being involved in all of this and controlling a secret Watergate fund, which turned out to be true, but we said there had been grand jury testimony to that effect. There had not, because no one had asked the witness about Haldeman. The witness would have said, oh yeah, Haldeman controlled that fund. There was no anger, there was no rancor on the part of Ben. It was, let's get this straightened out, let's untangle it, let's be calm. He was always kind of, there was never a thrown book or a fist on the table. It was, okay, more reporting. More reporting is always the solution. I think there's a great lesson in all of this for older reporters like you and myself, and for younger reporters, the facts. Who are the witnesses? How do they know this? Do they have an axe to grind? It is a reality now, in my view, that in the Obama administration, there are lots of unanswered questions about the IRS, particularly. If I were young, I would take Carl Bernstein and move to Cincinnati, where that IRS office is, and set up headquarters, go talk to everyone. Now, there's been political spin put on it by lots of people, including Fox News, including the White House. The question is, what are the facts? What really happened? And that was the Bradlee method. Get the facts. Listen to everyone. See what the official version is, but always doubt and be skeptical of that official version.
Are you suggesting that Fox News is not trying to get the facts, or just that the opinion people are, on both sides, you could say, are turning some of these issues into political football?
I think there have been, there's been a lot of fact-based reporting, and there's been a lot of political spin on all sides on this. And Bradley, were he the editor, or if he were Roger Ailes at Fox News, would be saying, what exactly did you ask these people? What did they say? What evidence is there? Who else can we talk to? How do we verify this? He had a whole litany of questions, and that's how you do good journalism.
You mentioned Mark Felt, known for 33 years to the rest of us only as Deep Throat. And in 2005, you faced a situation where a very elderly Mark Felt and his family seemed to disclose his identity to Vanity Fair. You and Ben have had a discussion about, should you go first? Should the Washington Post acknowledge that he was in fact your source? Talk about his role in that.
Well, it wasn't that he seemed. He said he was Deep Throat and made it very clear to his family and lawyer, Mark Felt did. The question was, that's older Mark Felt who had dementia to a certain extent, and the deal I made of non-disclosure of the identity was made with Mark Felt, who was a senior executive in the FBI. And the question Ben asked, which is a good one, you made the deal with that person. Can you kind of change the rules now, even though he has acknowledged it? And I was hesitant, and both Carl Bernstein and I were worried that somebody was taking advantage of Mark Felt. And we saw that picture of him with his walker, in his pajamas, with a smile of liberation on his face that I had never seen before. And Ben said, look, you got to acknowledge it, it's over, and once again we listened to him.